episode of My World of Stories podcast is unlike any other episode. As a disclaimer, this episode has a lot of emotional and heavy topics coming into play. So if you're feeling uncomfortable listening/watching this episode, then hit pause and we will see you back next time. With that being said, I am really excited to have two very amazing people on my podcast today. Here's a little bit of a background about Kathi and Chris Sullivan from Plainville, Massachusetts. Kathi Sullivan began to speak about alcohol awareness and the importance of making good choices in 2009 after her daughter Taylor had passed away from underage drinking. She met her now husband Chris Sullivan when she presented at her first parent night, who is a former NFL player. Chris was attending the meeting not as a parent, but as a man suffering from substance use disorder, anxiety, and depression. They came together and married in 2011, given an awareness to underage substance use, anxiety, depression, and more. Both of their stories resonate with anyone, whether you had people around you to do so or struggling yourself. They both have traveled around the world to send a message, their message, the Sullivan's message. I am so honored to have Kathi and Chris Sullivan join me today to spread an awareness and their story with you all. So buckle up, listen, and enjoy. First off, I'm really excited to have you guys on. I think this is like the first kind of episode that it's not like entertainment or any of that, which I think is nice because sometimes we need like content like this out. So first, can you guys first introduce yourselves to everybody and kind of a little bit of a background about you?
Absolutely. So my name is Kathi, and this is my husband, Christopher.
You can do mine.
Say hello. So we ended up, we've been married now for almost, how many years now? This year was 13 years. Wow, it's already been 13 years. So we ended up meeting after my daughter had passed away. So this is my daughter. For those of you who don't know me, that is Miss Taylor. Miss Taylor was a senior in high school back in 2008. And unfortunately, because of poor choices surrounding alcohol that night, she passed away on homecoming night, her senior in high school in Bentham, Massachusetts. So what brings us to you and to your high school a little bit ago was, something I call Taylor's message. And it's in honor of my daughter who passed away. And the whole point of the conversation is just to hopefully help, communities and young children and people in high school and middle schools and colleges just try to make better choices for themselves surrounding alcohol. We can go into more detail about what happened, but basically speaking, she had gone to a couple of series of parties that night and ended up getting lost in the woods later on at an outdoor party. And unfortunately, she ended up drowning. So it took us 3 days to find her, as you probably remember. And it was obviously my worst 3 days. But out of those worst 3 days, on that Monday morning when I realized that my daughter was gone, I obviously didn't know how I was going to live my life, because most parents, don't lose children, thank God, and it's not the path you want to be able to take. But somehow, I got the strength to be able to say, okay, this is going to have a purpose. 17 years, 3 months, and 3 days, I always say, and no way, she was way more than that. So, and that's how Taylor's message began. So that's how we started going around some schools. I actually spoke 2 months afterwards to my first school. And, I was a mess. I just literally bawled my eyes out and, tried to get the kids to make better choices. But how I met Miss Christopher was actually at a first parent night that I had done. Mr. Did I say Miss? I might have said Miss.
Hey, whatever.
Sorry, honey.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's all good these days. But what I basically did was I did a parent night because I wanted to be able to have, parents learn from my mistakes and everything else that happened in the community. So Chris was there, and the first time he was there, he was literally 5 weeks sober from struggle with substance use. So Chris, why don't you tell her what brought you there that night?
A little backstory on me, I guess. I'll go through. Grew up in North Attleboro, Massachusetts, so not far. I live one town over now. Found sports at a young age, which was, everything's kind of, I look in retrospect, you look back and a big reason, a lot of stuff what I talk to kids about is that my mental health struggles when I was younger that I didn't really know were mental health struggles. I grew up in a family, that you didn't talk. And I had a lot of struggles as a kid, but sports was my outlet for a long, long time. And went to Boston College on a football scholarship, ended up getting drafted by the Patriots 5 miles away. looks like the perfect little story. The local kid done good, and it went well for a while. You know, I did a lot of the right things and made a lot of great decisions and didn't go out and party and did all the right things. So everyone was like, you know, he's okay, he's fine, he's doing great, you know, and things kind of came crashing down on me. You know, I had a series of injuries and circumstances, and you know, I gave up football and struggled with substances for the next 7 or 8 years, you know, and didn't know much about it. You know, I didn't know what addiction really was. It wasn't really talked about. Alcoholism was talked about. And, you know, I struggled for a long, long time in denial. And I thought I was different. And I thought, not me. And this doesn't happen to me. And all the things, you know, and it's interesting to look back because 90% of the people that struggle with the substance or even, you know, self-harm or whatever it is, they struggle with the same thing when they're younger, you know, and it's self-esteem, self-worth, anxiety, depression, you know, all those things. There's some sort of trauma in their life, and people go through a lot, you know, and I think, like me, too many people kind of suffer in silence. They don't want people to know because they're ashamed of it, embarrassed of it. They want people to like them. They don't want their parents to know, you know, so too many people keep quiet about it. And unfortunately, a lot of people at some point or the other turn to a substance or some sort of behavior, destructive behavior. It could be self-harm, you name it. And that's kind of how I ended up here. I struggled for a while, and then through a series of events, some people came into my life, my sponsor and mainly my wife, and through the help of a lot of people. You know, it takes a village sometimes, and I think the hardest thing for, at least for me and a lot of people, is letting people help you. You know, because I didn't ask for help with anything until I was 36 years old. I didn't go to a teacher, a coach, a parent, a friend. You know, I thought I didn't need it. I can get through this on my own. And unfortunately, none of us can get through certain things on our own, you know, and that's kind of, I wouldn't be in schools if it wasn't for her. So I love it. I like the feedback we get. You know, I like, you know, the different interactions we have with the kids. It's just not, I've done a lot of it and it's still not comfortable for me.
It's not a comfort zone.
It's no, it's definitely, and I don't have many comfort zones. My comfort zone was about a half hour ago when I had the dogs on the couch.
4.
You know, dogs are kind of my comfort zone, you know, but I'm here now and it's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
And it took a lot of people and a lot of letting people into my life and putting my guards down a little bit to get here.
And that's why you were there at that parent night, 5 weeks sober.
Yeah, didn't want to go.
Didn't want to go.
Didn't want to meet. You know what the crazy part is? Not to
Now be nice.
No, not to sidetrack.
Yes.
I had, you know, I walked into that parent night in December, well, early 2009.
2009.
And you know, for me personally, my life was pretty upside down. I had gone through all my money. I was broke. My health was in poor shape. I had a lot of legal problems. I owed a lot of money to the IRS, I thought, and I had a lot going on, and I didn't have a ton of hope at the time. But I remember going to her talk because one of her friends was helping me out at the time, and I remember when I left the talk, I had a different perspective on life. You know, things could always be worse. You know, my circumstance was money, health, like I can get those things back. You know, she doesn't get her daughter back. So I remember leaving that, and she was kind of a mess that night. It was her first parent night, and it was, I remember leaving going, I didn't think I'd marry you. I was like, that woman's kind of a disaster right now.
She's a mess. Yeah.
And
little did you know.
A few months later,
we started hanging out.
Yeah, I tried to avoid that too. We're going to be honest.
That is our background. So we've been doing this now for over 15 years because Taylor passed away 15 years in October. And I got to tell you, like, I mean, I'm obviously a full-time realtor as well. And we do this 30, 40, 50 times a year, depending on what we're called. And honestly, like our life is around recovery, and that's what's most important to us. You know, yes, I love real estate. I love to make a living as well, but our world is this, you know, life that we have. And, you know, it came from one of my worst moments in my life, you know, and I wouldn't go back and change it, you know, and I've said that a lot out in public, and same with Chris. You've said you wouldn't.
Well, you know, the kind of cool thing about it too is how far everyone's come in 13 years. Because even when I get sober, like, there was a lot of shame around it. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't something like my parents wanted people to know. I didn't want people to know, you know, and I think 13 years later, and it took it, the opiate epidemic and the fentanyl and everything that's going on, but I think more people realize, like, these people that struggle with substances and addiction, like, they're not bad people, you know, they're just people like me and you. You know, a lot of them had something going on, and a lot of it's circumstance. You know, you just surround yourself with I'm not going to say bad people, but
making poor
you know, the people you circle yourself with, you know, is an important thing in life. You know, and you know, you get in the wrong circle and the wrong group of people, and maybe they all kind of felt like me at the time. I surrounded myself with people when my life really started to go in the wrong direction, with people just like me. We're depressed, weren't happy, we're all making bad choices, you know, and your life heads off in that direction, you know, and I don't know how I get to that, but
we never know how we get to where we're going.
A lot of concussions. I blame everything on the concussions, but
nice try.
Excuses running out.
When you wanted to call us to speak to us, like, what was the reasoning behind it?
Well, you guys came to my school, and I obviously saw the whole assembly, and it was like, I mean, we've been to, like, my whole school, we've been to like assemblies after assemblies, like that whole week and stuff. But there was something about yours that like stood out to me, just to like talk about something different and to get the message more across, because like, you know, like what happens at my school a lot is you have like a lot of people that don't do a lot of good things. You have a lot of people.
Teenage brain.
Yeah. There's a lot of people in the bathroom vaping, and like then there's a lot of people drinking and doing like bad things that they shouldn't be doing at their age. That's why there's a legal age out there of why you do things. Yeah, I started like thinking about that, because the assembly impacted not just me, but it impacted everybody, teachers, students. It really did.
Yeah, I did know it always gets the conversation going. And that's what's most important to us, you know.
Like, it's crazy even for me. I've never written anything down, which is really bad for an anxious person. Like, I was always so prepared, like, at least in sports, you know, so when the game came, I wasn't worried about things, but I've never, I always say it after, like, I need to have an ending, but I've always been afraid if I had something prepared, I wouldn't be me. And I'm definitely not an actor, and I'm definitely not, you know, going to be the person that could put on a show, but I want to look uncomfortable and sweating and nervous, and
just real.
Because I think we don't bring stats, and we don't want kids to think it's like we're telling them how to live their lives. We just want to tell two different stories, and for kids just to realize how, especially with her, how important they are, and how quickly things can change, and we don't want to come across as the
doom and gloom.
Yeah. You know, the stories aren't wonderful and happy, but we definitely don't want it to come across like, we don't want them to leave like nervous or upset. Well, upset's okay sometimes.
Okay, upset is okay, but you know, we just want to feel it. And I always tell the schools, and I don't know if you noticed this, but with a full day assembly, it may have been different, but I always tell the schools that we have to present in the morning, because we want the kids to hear it in the morning, and we want the kids to be able to digest what they hear during the day next to their peers, or maybe the counselor if they need to be, because we never know what's going to affect a certain student. We don't know if it's going to be, you know, the person maybe who is doing the actions, or maybe the parents, you know, have the problem with substances, or, you know, maybe they lost a sibling or a cousin or a friend or someone important to them. So we always want them to be able to still be in the school for a few hours after they hear it. You know, I think that's really, really important, you know, and that's part of how we present, is to be able to make sure it's in the morning so the kids are well taken care of afterwards. So, you know, some schools don't like that, but I'm always like, oh, well, it has to happen. You know, it's got to be in the morning. I'm not leaving them high and dry. You know, even like yesterday, we had a presentation. Was it supposed to be this morning? So it was supposed to be this morning at Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and unfortunately, they lost a 17-year-old student this past weekend from a car accident. So obviously, the presentation was canceled. And, you know, I said, you're not going to be able to do it this year because, you know, it does come with a heavy story, and, you know, that would be too much for them. So we're very cognizant of that when we go to schools as well. But, you know, I mean, and I hope you can say this, I'm probably one of the cheeriest humans you've ever met in your life, right?
Well, when you came to my school, they didn't tell us like ahead of time, like who was coming. Yeah. I was like, this girl is so huggable. And I was like, what is this assembly gonna be?
Cute. My gravestone, honey. She's a hugger. Yeah. Yeah, but that's what's so important, though, because I'm the mom who's standing there telling you that I lost my 17-year-old daughter to underage drinking. Yeah. But then I need them to see the joy. You know, I need to see the survival, and, you know, that life can keep moving on. And I love that you just said that I'm so huggable, because that's, you know, that's one of my biggest things when I get there. I mean, you saw the kids come down and hug afterwards, and it's just, the lines are amazing. It works. It totally works.
Chris, you have a background of being on the NFL and stuff. Now, you had your own struggles throughout that time, but I want to know, just like from being on like the Patriots and stuff, how did that like feel for you? Like, you know, being on a team that is like so big.
Yeah, well, I was kind of on it before they were so big. You know, it's kind of one of my regrets too, you know, because I think being the local kid, it brought some extra stresses, at least in my head, which is all the time.
Because literally 5 miles away.
Yeah, and so I had a ton of family, friends. They would be at practice, every camp practice. My mother didn't miss one, and I'd get knocked down, and I have like 50 people watching me. It brought a lot of extra stress, but what I'm trying to get to is I never took the time to appreciate it. You know, I played 6 years, and then kind of my back injury kind of took me out, but I never took the time to appreciate what I was going through at the time. You know, I don't like, even in college, you know, going out and playing Notre Dame or Michigan, or walking onto the field for 2 Super Bowls, like I never once walked out and looked around and said, oh, this is pretty cool. You know, I was always so wrapped up in my own head and anxious and nervous and thinking like worst case scenario that you know, I look back now and I'm glad, you know, it happened to me, you know, but I wish if I went back that I kind of enjoyed it more and took it for what it was, because, you know, it was a pretty cool thing being a local kid, you know, but at the time I didn't allow myself to enjoy it.
So you always tell the athletes to enjoy it, like the high school athletes, to look around and see what they're doing.
Well, yeah, I think at every level, you just kind of, you know, put your head down and go. And, you know, in high school, you're looking forward to college, and then you get to college and you want to go back to high school, you know. And once I left high school, it was, you know, they glorify, you know, times have changed. I don't know how I think it's a little different culture now, college sports, but, you know, when I got to college, I was like, I wasn't expecting this. Like, I didn't realize like this is a job. And my position coach is from Texas, and he moves his family to Boston, and I'm not playing good. He's going to get fired, and it's all becomes a business, and it's not like, hey, mom and dad and all your friends are at the game. It's like you're getting screamed at, and they expect you to be a certain level, and then you get to the NFL and it gets ramped up even more. And I wish, like, during the process, I didn't take things so serious. I tried to always be the kid that did everything right.
Do you think you'd go back and do it again?
It's interesting. I heard, I don't know, I was watching a podcast or something, and I don't watch a ton of them, but it was a guy that went to Notre Dame. He got kicked out. He got in a fight in the off season with a teammate. And he got kicked out and went to Northwestern, broke his foot. Long story short, like if he had stayed healthy, he'd probably been a fourth round pick like me and played a few years in the NFL. But now the guy's he didn't get drafted. He went into business and then went out on his own. And he's like, the one thing his father said to him was like, the best thing that ever happened to you was never get drafted, that you didn't get drafted into the NFL. And there are times now that I look back and go, probably might have been a good thing for someone like me, to not have that path because like I lost my most formative years. 22 to 36 were like a blank because I did football for 6 years and that was great, but then I struggled with addiction for like the next 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
So like at 36, when I should have been, kind of in my prime and realizing what I want to do with the rest of my life, I was like, what do I do now?
You know what I've heard him say before? He said that he used to be able to hide behind the helmet.
Oh.
Yeah, because he had the helmet on and he was able to just stay within
Well, it's
himself.
funny because when I was in college, I did internships in Boston with the Boston Police Department, and I kind of had things going, and I feel at times that sports really hindered me. Like for a long time, it was my outlet, and that's how I got things out, and my anger and my stress and my anxiety. But also on the flip side, like emotionally, I don't feel like I was ever forced to grow up. And like it seemed like the older I got, the worse I got mentally, as far as my mental health,
Now, had you gone the route and gone into the theater like Brooke did, you could have gotten all of
could have
that.
never done it.
I told her before you get on that you always say they're the bravest kids in the whole entire class.
No,
Yeah.
frozen. I will, it's funny, it still runs, fear still has a huge part in my life. I'm running it.
Yeah.
Like I've come a long way, but like there's certain things like I don't think I could ever do. Even if I was on an island, I didn't know anyone on the island, I couldn't get up and say 3 lines in a play.
You'd have to.
I know. I wish I got forced when I was younger to interact with other people.
Yeah.
I always tell people I went through 5 years at Boston College. I graduated in 3.5. I got redshirted. I got into graduate school. I did all the right things. I didn't know one regular student. I only knew my roommates and a few guys on the teams I was friends with. For 5 years, I hit, and
You can't hide when you're in the theater.
no, like I wish as a kid or when I was in high school, not football camp, like I wish I had to go away to like a summer camp or some sort of camp where like I had to meet people.
You said that the other day.
And
Yeah.
and I see kids do it now and they have certain kid parents are dropping their kids off at camp for 2 months. And I'm like, that is probably the best thing you'll ever do for your kid. Learn to interact. At the end of the day, like interaction and being social and talking to people is the key to everything.
Even this, just like even like one-on-one.
You're doing this. I wouldn't do this either.
Yeah, she's done this many times. We're like, what podcast?
We had a meeting for a couple of years. I don't know how many things I said. She ran it.
Yeah.
She was like, we're supposed to do this together. I'm like, have fun tonight.
Yeah,
During the pandemic, we started an AA meeting, which is really bad. I kind of bowed out.
Yeah, no, we did an AA meeting on Zoom, just to have like a Zoom meeting for people. So I'm like, Chris, I'm not even in recovery. I stopped drinking when I met him, but I never had a substance use disorder. So, but I would like manage like to be able to keep the people talking. I'm like, you're the one in recovery. You're supposed to be chatting. So it was funny, but you get out of your shell. You're doing good.
So, Kathi, I want to like touch upon a little bit more about Taylor and a little bit more like of why you do what you do.
Okay. Yeah. So why I do what I do. You know, it's funny. I was a single mom when Taylor passed. So I was married really young. I got married my first time. He's my second one. I got married my first time at 19, his first. But I got married when I was 19. I had been with my ex-husband since I was 16. We had babies quick. You know, I had Zachary, my oldest, when I was 20. I had Taylor just when I turned 23. And then, you know, I had my son Logan 7 years later. But by the time Taylor was 17 years old, I was a single mom. And, you know, I thought I was doing a good job raising her. And, you know, it was obviously comes with challenges, as most of the single parents out there can imagine. But when she passed away from underage drinking, I have to tell you, my world stopped. I was 40 years old. I had just turned 40 in June, and it was in October. And I was successful at my real estate career, and you know, life was really good. It was peaceful. I was always this happy little human. I was always that type of person. I had a good life. But that October afternoon when my world changed, I didn't know how I was going to survive it. And the news had been everywhere because it was on the news that she was lost for the 3 days. It was actually national news. My girlfriend was in Bahamas and she heard it on the news down there somehow. So when she was found on that Monday after the search, I stayed at my sister's house for a month because I didn't want to go home. I just thought there's no way I'm starting this world. It's just not going to happen, you know, without Taylor being up in her bedroom, basically. So I didn't go home and I thought, what are we going to do? And I will share with you that when Taylor was found on Monday, we couldn't wake her till the following Sunday. And I do have a huge faith, and I don't know if I can talk about that on here, but I'm gonna anyways. I never really did before. I always knew there was a God, or whoever you want to believe in is fine, but that's always what I believed in. But I never had like an active relationship by any means. But when Taylor was found on Monday, we couldn't wake her till Sunday. So I wasn't able to have her services till the following Sunday. But my sister, who lived right down the street from here, had lived next to the funeral home. So we went to the funeral home and I was able to bring my mom in there, my boys in there. They literally gave me a key book to the funeral home for me to be able to go in and out as I needed to, which parents do not get that when you lose a child. You just don't ever get that. They get a half an hour before the people come in, they have to wake their child and they move forward. I didn't have that. I had Taylor full access from that following Thursday all the way to Sunday by myself to be able to figure out how I'm going to do this. And I had my family come in, I had my parents, my mother come in, I had my boys come in, and I had time that most parents don't have. So by the time I did her services, and we literally had 2,500 people walk through those lines for 4 hours. And by the time they were walking through, I had already gotten my daughter's bracelets. They say at that time, they said Taylor Lee Meyer, and they had live, laugh, love on it because that was Taylor's favorite saying. I handed those bracelets out literally at her wake. I had her music blaring, and Brooke, it was the most inappropriate music you could ever imagine at someone's funeral. It was all of Taylor's CDs. I didn't care. It was trash. It was horrible. We had pictures. We had pink and white balloons throughout that whole entire funeral home. It was loud. It was Taylor. Like, she went out how she lived. And I was able to somehow at that funeral service stand up in front of over 750 people and do Taylor's eulogy. I never should have been able to do that. There is no way that as a mother I should have been able to do that. So immediately something was coming from Taylor's passing. Like, I was like, this is going to change how people think. People are going to make better choices. A lot of my process in the beginning was just the buddy system because she was left by herself. You know, it was like, if you're going to be drinking, please take care of your friends. But then the more the message got out there, I realized how dangerous underage drinking is. You know, I was that parent that had a rite of passage attitude. You know, kids are going to be kids, you know. So like, it was part of my upbringing as a parent as well that may have given Taylor the reason, oh, mom's not that bad about it, she won't kill me. So I think a lot of my process at the time was, you know, why did I think that? You know, that was wrong. This is the way to be living. I should have known 21 was 21. And there was a lot of me that changed that day. Like, I went from that 40-year-old happy mom thinking I was doing a great job to thinking, oh, maybe I wasn't. This is really what I should have been doing. So I think for me, it was education, and it was a reason. And like with my faith, I really thought God put Taylor on this earth to like be here for that long and then to have a message with her. And I always say she's done more in the last 15 years than most 32-year-olds would have been, because she would be 32 today. And it's going to make me tear up a little bit, but I really do feel that there is a purpose for everything. So like, why do I do what I do? It's because it gives me my kid every single day still. Like I say Taylor's name probably more than I say Zachary and Logan's name, my other two kids. I talk about Taylor like she's in the other room. We have grandbabies from his ex-girlfriend's kids that never met Taylor, that think they know Taylor, So I think there's a lot of parents out there that lose their kids and they never speak their name, and for me, that could have never, ever, ever had happened, because I needed to have her have a purpose, 17 years, that's all I got. Hell no, couldn't possibly have been that. So why do I do what I do? That's why I do. And I will tell you, from the very first time, 2 months after Taylor passed, she passed in October, spoke at my first school right down the street, his old high school, in January. So 2.5 months. And the very first time I spoke, I knew, okay, this is what's supposed to happen. And it just continued on, and more schools called and more schools called. And, and it became a mission, it really became a mission, and I will say for the first year, I was just trying to save everybody's kids because, I had lost my own. But then it got to the point where, it was about the message, and it was about getting some awareness out there for people, because, we can't control people. We can't, change everybody from doing what they're doing, but at least we can put a thought. Like we always say, we just want to put a little seed in their heads, to think, oh, wait a minute, maybe my gut's telling me I shouldn't do this, and especially parents. Like I parented 100% differently with my 10-year-old and my 19-year-old, because my son was 19 at the time. My world changed and my parenting skills changed, and so much more has come out of it because of that. So that's why I do what I do for my kid. Would I prefer her to be 32 years old, giving me grandbabies today? Absolutely, but that's not the road, So that's why. And then why do I do it? So I can sit here on this podcast and have a conversation with your adorable self. Like seriously, like that's why we do it. That's what it's all about. Yeah. Everybody has a path. Everybody goes through something. There's not a single person in this world that's getting out of this unscathed. And I feel bad for the families that can't find that purpose, because those are the moms and the dads that literally suffocate every single day. I also do a mom's meeting book for anybody who's listening, Tuesday night, 7 p.m. And it used to be Moving Forward Parents, but then like we had one dad come and then he left, and then it's all moms. So now I call it Moving Forward Mamas. And we have regularly every Tuesday, 7 p.m., we have at least 15 women that sign on every, 7 p.m. and we talk. And we talk about their kids. And it can be somebody who lost a child at stillbirth. They could be car accidents. They can be illnesses, overdoses, substance use, alcoholism, illnesses, suicide. It doesn't matter. We all talk. And honestly, whether your child died from an illness or a substance use overdose or a car accident, it's all the same feelings, so that's, there's a lot of people going through stuff right now. So yeah, there's a purpose. Yeah. I'm just not meant to be a realtor. That's not my only job, even though that's fabulous.
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting too, because when we started doing it, you didn't realize once we started going school to school, stuff happens everywhere. Like you think like it's isolated, like this doesn't, the thing that happened to Taylor doesn't happen it actually happened right down the street a few years in Franklin, the same body of water, one town over.
Yeah.
Kid came home from either North Carolina or Duke, first day home for summer vacation, and went to a party down the street and
got lost in the way.
Well, he could walk home, but he tried to take a path that brought him onto a golf course. He got lost on the golf course and
same thing.
And
he
froze.
Passed away.
Yeah. But it's everywhere. That's the
So we just want people to know they're not alone. You don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
Because some people it happens to and they don't talk about it. And it's not a good thing.
No.
Usually.
No, not at all.
What is like the greatest part about like sharing your story to like all these schools and like stuff like
You
this.
got something?
No, I know hers, hugs.
Hugs. No, yeah,
No,
no.
it is, like,
It's the
your
connection.
interaction with the kids.
Yes.
then.
It is 100% the connection for me. And it's 100% that they come up to us afterwards. Like most school assemblies, as you know, Brooke, it's done and they run out the door.
They come up to you.
They come
You
up
know what's
to you.
funny? I get the kids that are like me, which is so bizarre because they get within like 10 feet and I can see in their head, they're like, I don't want to do this. I'm not going up. And then they look nervous and, you know, and then they come up and we're both awkward.
Yeah, but you chat.
No, but that's I get, sometimes I get a bunch of people that give me hugs.
Yeah, you do. No, but you know, it's funny, like, you mentioned a couple months ago, I put a post on Facebook because I'm a huge Facebook poster. I share my emotions out there. I don't care, the good, the bad, the ugly, you're going to know it. But I put a post out there and said, I want to know how many people on Facebook know me from Taylor's message. And when did I come to your school? I had to have had 100 posts from kids who have afterwards befriended me on Facebook. And they wrote, like, you came to my school in 2010. It was the most powerful thing, I think, at Taylor today. I've had kids. I'm now 32. I'm a teacher. So this was really cool. So BC High is a boys' school, as you might know. So one of the principals called me years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and said, hey, I got a message from one of my alumni. He graduated 4 years ago, and he left a voicemail on the principal's voicemail. And he said, hi, Mr. So-and-so, whoever he was. He goes, this is JC. I graduated 4 years ago. I have had one of the moms who came who lost her daughters. I've had her bracelet on for the last 4 years, and it broke. And I need another one, he wrote. Now, this is a 22-year-old young man, and he had Taylor's bracelet on that at that time said Taylor Lee Meyer, and then it said, somebody loves me. And he goes, I've had that bracelet on for 4 years. It's a part of me. I need another one. Can you please reach out to that mom? And I thought, here that is, this 22-year-old young man needing an affirmation to remind himself that he is important and somebody loves him. So they ended up, of course, giving me the number, and I called him back. I go, hey, JC, how are you? This is that kid, that daughter's mom, Taylor's mom. Yeah, he was graduating from Boston College at that time. So literally, I called him up. I said, where do you live? And he said, I live in Mattapan. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to bring you some bracelets over. So Chris and I went to Mattapan that following next day or whatever. I grabbed a bunch of bracelets, and we sat at his living room. His mom came in, and we were chatting away. And the irony book, we mentioned his last name, I think it was Carrera or something. Centeo. Okay. And he said, and Chris goes, oh, Centeo. He goes, I used to work with John Centeo. She goes, he goes, he had a horrible bike accident. And the kid looked at him, he goes, that's my uncle.
Oh.
Well, and
he worked with him every day.
When John, he got in a really bad motorcycle, someone pulled into his lane when he was going like 60.
Wow.
But he rehabbed at their house. He stayed on.
Yes, he stayed on their couch that we were sitting on for like, so
super nice family.
I always say Taylor and Chris's message gets to who they're supposed to. But the irony, like that boy having that bracelet on, you know, for 4 years, and it was that important. And I just had the same thing happen with a kid named Garrett who worked at Lowe's. I had gone there one day and noticed he had one. And he said, oh, no, I wear it every day. And then a month ago, he called me and said, hey, it broke. Can you bring me more? I was like, I'm coming on down. So that's what it's about, because Taylor brings me people every single day. I swear she introduces me to people just like you still every single day. So that's the best. Like, see the smile, like I can't help but smile when I talk about what happens, you know, and it came from my worst moment, you know, but we always say, you know, sometimes your worst moments can bring, you know, the best things to you.
Yeah, that's my story.
That's your story. Yep. Yep.
What is like your advice to teens and to parents like that do struggle with like a substance or like anything that they're struggling with?
Let someone know. Talk to someone you trust. You know, I think for a lot, even in my what's interesting in my experience is I could have gone to my parents at any point, you know, and probably like 3 years ago, this is just fast forward, my wife got me on this national TV show. If you want a good laugh, look up Chris Sullivan, Mel Robbins.
You need to watch her.
Yeah, huge. Like her podcast, I think, is #1 on
Spotify.
Spotify. But my wife followed her, and she got a national TV show, and my wife wanted me to go on. She wanted to get on the show, but she used me. So she wrote a letter to the show, but she said she was me, and she listed all my problems.
But they were real. Everything was true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long story short, I didn't want to. I ignored the first few emails from them, but I went on the show. It was supposed to be on for 15 minutes. I was on for an hour and 15. People had flown in from Canada. They didn't even bring them out because the lady was kind of fascinated. They had like a head specialist there. And it's crazy, the woman pinpointed my first serious concussion was in 8th grade because there was scarring in my brainstem or something. But I stayed on for an hour and 15 minutes, and I am getting to a point about 4 days, but no, it was further than that, a couple weeks after it aired. And what I'm trying to get to is, I guess my mother watched it. And my mother was my mother showed up to everything, but she was kind of the disciplinarian. I never really saw my mother cry. I walked in that Sunday after she watched it, and she broke down in the kitchen. And, she said, I just didn't know, that you were struggling like you were. And I was like, there's no way you would have known, because what I'm trying to get to is I think a lot of parents want to believe everything's okay. And I think a lot of kids want to put on that disguise and act a certain way and fit in, and the problem is there's no communication between you, and, you got to talk to people when you're struggling with something. In my case, it was someone I didn't really know, happened to be a friend of hers. The guy that helped me at first, my sponsor, you probably know what a sponsor is, but some people don't. He was in recovery. He had like 15 years, and he's just kind of like a coach to you, and but I opened up to this guy that I had met 3 or 4 times, and that's the thing that changed my life, was asking for help, and that's my big advice, parents don't believe everything's perfect, and when you're younger, open up to someone you trust if you're really struggling with something. It doesn't always have to be a parent. It could be a teacher, a coach, a best friend, someone in your life, because the crazy part is just saying it to someone else, it like makes it so much easier, but people are so afraid to do that.
Yeah. They shouldn't be afraid. And obviously I think people with substance use disorder, like if they realize like if it's affecting them at all, then it's a problem, So, I mean, I think especially with young kids, like, because you would say you didn't drink much when you were younger, but you would black out. So obviously that's not normal, So, they have to understand, if that's what they're going for instead of doing what's better for them, then obviously it's a problem.
And a lot of times, like, the people close to you get blinded. Like my parents for a long time didn't want to believe, it was as bad as it was until it got like 100 times worse,
right.
But communication's the key to most things, and
but what, there's a statistic out there that says that if you start drinking at 15 years of age on a regular basis, you are 4 times more likely to become an alcoholic, like 4 times more likely. And that's why there's the drinking age 21, because of obviously how the brain works. And when I heard that, I don't know if Taylor would have had an issue, but she had started drinking her sophomore year. It was the first time that I noticed something. And, I reprimanded her. She was grounded for 30 days. I thought we nipped it in the bud. But if she had been drinking since she was 15 years of age, would she have struggled more? You don't know. So there's an absolute reason why you shouldn't be using substances. And I will tell you that parents need to have a 0 tolerance, because if they don't, the kids can't understand, oh, why can I do this here, but I can't do it here. I think when you have a 0 tolerance, there's the expectations, and like that's what I had with my son Logan, because he was 10 when he lost his sister. So as I already said, he had a different mom, so those expectations were in place.
Well, I think too, as a parent, you need to be a role model too. Like
Absolutely.
it's okay for your parents to have drinks and, but what I see in my recovery meetings is a lot of kids said, I couldn't wait till I was old enough to drink so I could drink like my parents. They drank on the weekends, or that's how my parents dealt with stress. They got stressed, they went and had a few drinks, and I'm not saying don't drink, just be careful of what you portray, as a role model.
Absolutely. Don't always let it be your go-to.
No.
Nope.
Yeah. And I hear that a lot,
You do.
Good advice.
But what was your thing?
My thing for
I
what?
think I was the only one that answered.
No, it's a good answer.
Okay.
I answered some.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
So you both, besides doing, Taylor's message and you, Chris, like, what is like, you do other stuff, like you do real estate and stuff. So like, can you explain like your other stuff that you do?
The other stuff we do is animals, grandkids. I'm having my second grandchild soon from my son. So my oldest, who was 19 when Taylor passed, is now going to be, is he 36 already? Yeah, he's going to be 36 in November. So he's having his second child now. So I'm blessed to be able to watch my grandson, who's a year old, and he's getting another one too with Jess. I'm very excited. So we watch them. We watch our grandkids from his ex-girlfriend's kids. We watch them all the time. So we have them a lot. We do a lot of basketball games for nieces and nephews. He's got more nieces and nephews than you can imagine. And then honestly, obviously the real estate career and, keeping busy in that manner, but we travel a lot.
And I'm trying to figure out what I want to do.
What do you want to
do? I kind of said earlier, about when I brought up, do I wish I got drafted into the NFL? And the reason I kind of say that, I lost those years. And then when I got sober, my brother owned a company and offered me a job, telecommunications company. So I got into that and I did that for a while. And then I split off and started my own company for like 5 years. And kind of all along the way, I didn't get into telecommunications because I loved it. It was like I needed to get a job. Yeah. I didn't start the company because I really wanted to and loved it. It was because it was presented to me.
Yeah.
And so right before COVID, I gave my partner, basically, I gave him the company. We just said, here's all the vans, here's all the parts. You're a nice person. You have kids. I don't want anything for it.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much. But so for the first time, we were like, well, let's publicize our speaking. We've never marketed it ever, which is probably not the best business plan, but we just never felt comfortable marketing us, saying,
Right.
So I sat down at a computer, I fired off a few hundred emails. We got 30 schools in 2 weeks.
Booked instantly.
We're like, wow.
So this was 2 weeks before COVID.
Yes, that's what happened.
Yeah. So 2 weeks before COVID, they were all going to start. They were starting on March 20th, and then COVID hit March 15th, yeah. And then all the schools had to cancel because you weren't in school anymore and whatnot. So yeah.
And so COVID hit, and it's funny because at 50, I'm like, what do I want to do? I've never done something for myself. My biggest problem is starting something. Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? I worked up at a men's sober house for a couple of years, helping out on and off, and I enjoyed that. But it's I played football. It really wasn't my choice. I think just kind of the way things happen and the telecommunication, it's I'm 50 and I'm like, what do I have for skills and what do I want to do? And I wish at a young age I got into something, and so even a trade.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if I could do a trade because I think 40 years of doing heavy squats and lifting and football, it's my back and elbows and wrists aren't having it. So
but it just
it's
goes
a scary
back to
time for me.
Yeah, but it goes back to trying to figure out where your passions are. What do you want to do? Because if you're working a full-time job, what do you want to do? Yeah. So
yeah. What the key is want. Find something that doesn't feel like a job.
Yeah.
That you look forward to each day.
Yeah, that you enjoy doing.
Which is cool because you get out of college, that's when your time to try this. I don't want this. I don't want that. And then,
You know.
find your path.
Yeah,
Like
so
she found real estate early. She
I
loves
did real estate early. I love real estate. I'll do it till I'm 85 years old, so I'll always be doing that. But it is true, like you do need to have like hobbies and interests, and I'm trying to get healthy, so I'm doing that right now. He's always been, very healthy, going to the gym and doing his thing. So, so that's where our passions are. But we do need to find a little bit more things. We want to go to the theater more, so we definitely, he likes musicals, he likes that. So we got to
I
do
feel
that
bad
more.
because left to my own devices, I wouldn't leave the house and I'd just stay with the dogs.
Yes.
I'm just that person. So I actually feel like I bring her down a lot. Last time, this is true. Last time we went on vacation, 2010.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
We went to North Carolina for a week.
But we travel with school,
Yeah,
so like
that's kind of our travel.
So that is our travel, because like we're going to Oklahoma in the beginning of April, so like we travel like to go to speeches. So like that's kind of like our little vacations that we go to. It's pathetic because we don't even ever stay an extra day, but we're gonna learn to stay an extra day.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's it. Yeah.
You're never too late to start over. Old.
Never too late.
Old.
Old, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
So where could like people like stay up to date with you, and like where you're going, or if people want to get in touch with you to like...
Excellent. So yeah, and you can put this at the end of your podcast, but it's basically sullivansmessage.com. So no apostrophe, obviously, just sullivansmessage.com. That has our website. It also has a great page of like resources for if you have someone struggling, that, you need some resources for addiction or places to detox or just, basic wellness. So there's some great resource pages on that as well. But if you scroll down to the bottom, it does give you a list of our schools that we're at. There's a calendar there, so I try to keep up to date with like where we're going. Most of the time it's schools during the day, so it's not like anybody can just show up at a school, but there are some nighttime events. So if they wanted to be able to see if like we were doing a parent night or a community night around, there is some things on there for nighttime events. Or they can always just email us, if they go to Sullivan's Message, it's right there. Our email is very simple. It's just sullivansmessage@gmail.com. And we always try to accommodate what we can, so if any towns or anything out there that are thinking, maybe we can bring the program there, if we try to get to wherever we can. So we will make it happen. And then, if ever you're struggling or you want to try to find a detox or anything, Chris has some great resources, that we reach out to people and try to get people in places. We have some good contacts. Chris Heron from Heron Wellness does a great program, and he does a lot of like placement. So that's like a really nice resource we have. Yeah, it works. I will tell you that I'm very jealous of people in recovery. And the irony is because it's such a great group of people that are in recovery, and like they all support each other and they have their meetings, and I'm always like, I want to go to a meeting, because like they just talk and they have people who help them out all day long, and it's just such a nice tight world. It's a nice tight knit world. It is. And that's kind of like this here, like you see this little resource page behind this books behind me. We have a little resource center, and it's nothing big. We don't do meetings here. I meet moms or parents who have lost kids. Chris will come and talk to people, in this office space as well. So it's right in North Attleboro. So if ever you're looking to like just come in and chat, we're always here as well. So.
Well, I appreciate you guys doing this with me.
Well, I appreciate you doing it too. It's going to be great to see where it goes.
Thank you so much for listening and watching to My World with Stories podcast. Make sure to subscribe and follow along on YouTube and Spotify. To stay up to date, you can follow My World with Stories podcast on both Facebook and Instagram at My World with Stories podcast. Make sure to give this podcast a like for future episodes coming your way. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and we will see you guys next time.